So now I want to talk about work as a learning network. So this is how I think about teams. And research at Glassdoor, which is a website that leverages feedback anonymously from employees who have either worked there before or who are currently working there. They do a lot of research as well. And this past year, they did a really interesting piece of research where they found that the number one reason people leave organizations is not because of the manager anymore. That's still important, but it was because people were not learning and growing. And I don't think it's because people don't want to learn. I think it's because people don't know what to learn, and they don't know how to learn with each other. And so one of the things that we talked a lot about in all the companies I worked in, but specifically at Twitter, was how do we intentionally create those connections from our behaviors and our skills into the learning experiences of teams. And when teams get together and we create these cohorts of similar experiences, how do we kind of give them that learning experience, teaching them essentially how to learn from each other? And so one of the things that we did was we put people in similar contexts or similar situations. So we didn't just have a general manager training. We had a training or a learning experience for just new managers who've never managed before. We did also a cohort, this is one with our directors. Director level, as you know, is a key part of somebody's career. It's a huge leap to the next level. And a lot of times they were scared about what they didn't know. And so we would pull groups together to talk about three things. One was always kind of a skill or behavior that we wanted to make sure was integrated into that group's thinking. So how we make decisions at Twitter, how we have one-on-ones, how we coach people. So there was always kind of a piece of information that people could take away. The other thing was we gave them an opportunity to get coached. So either I, as the facilitator, would coach, or they would learn how to coach each other as colleagues. And then they would get coaching and in a very safe place. We talked a little bit yesterday about psychological safety. So these teams that were formed, these cohorts, started to create a really safe space for things that happened at the front lines, things that they were dealing with, things that they didn't know how to deal with their employees. They would bring that back into this cohort so they could get coached and talk through and validate what they were learning. And what was really interesting about this is, after we were done, so we would do this probably, like it was every week for an hour and a half for 3 months, sometimes 6 months. After these groups would be done, they actually still work together as teams. And so Amy Edmondson, a professor at Harvard who talks about psychological safety, also is doing a lot of work now around what she calls teaming. And this is about teams coming together who aren't organizationally structured as teams, but teams coming together as complementary skill sets, knowledge, coming together for an initiative that has to be rolled out in 3 months, or a customer project that has to get done. And so what we found is because these cohorts worked so well together, not just in terms of getting results, but in terms of learning together, they wanted to continue to work together. And so I think it's just really important that as much as possible, we as talent professionals find intentional times to, when we bring people together, for them to also experience in a very safe place how to learn together. Because I think that when our network, our teams support learning, learning happens more naturally, and it starts to be integrated more. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is data and how we can use that more effectively. And I know I've been in some sessions where we talked a lot about that as well. Just, it's interesting that I think just a several years back, we didn't have a lot of workplace productivity tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams. And I remember a time, you don't have to raise your hand, but when there wasn't even email, imagine that. And we have so many teams now and employees, and especially, I'm sure, with a lot of your organizations, they're dispersed. They're not in headquarters. We're not in the same office. And so how do we use these tools and data to help us manage teams more effectively, especially when we're not in the same place? We have enough problems even when we're all in the same place together. But when we're spread out across the world, how do we manage our teams well? And managers are such a crucial role, as we all know. They are the ones that either are going to help teams be more effective, or they're going to be the ones who don't address a lot of the issues that come up. And so the data that's out there now is just endless. There's a lot of companies that are popping up. We used to just have engagement surveys as kind of our main place to get feedback. Some of you have heard of Humu. Laszlo Block, who used to be head of HR at Google, started this company where he called it nudges, where you get managers get nudges on kind of what to do with their teams. I'm actually advising a company called LeadX that does something similar. So think about it as a leader identity of record. So we talk a lot about HR systems and bringing all of our data together as an employee record, but when we do things like 360s, engagement surveys, Myers-Briggs, DISC assessment, none of that information is stored anywhere. And not only is the issue right now that we have dispersed teams, but we also change teams a lot. I have a friend who I think she's had 8 managers in the last 2 years. And so when we're moving around so much, ideally as a manager, we want to get that feedback about who we're about to manage. And so this pulls it all together into one identity of record. And then it's a combination of behavioral science, artificial intelligence. They have what they call, it's Coach Amanda. And you can set it up however you want to. If you want a weekly nudge, you can. If you want a nudge every 8 days. A lot of companies now, the participants who are piloting this, they want a nudge on a daily basis, just to remember kind of what to think about. And then they provide coaching. Amanda makes a suggestion or gives you coaching, based on, the fact that you're a high D, you might want to remember to, not be as forceful in this meeting. Or if you actually have to have an action plan that you input, it then brings you micro learning opportunities like in Netflix, and you can access tons of videos and online resources that can be available to you on a daily basis. So they call it hyper-personalization at scale. So I think it's really interesting. There's another company called Cultivate AI, which actually gets information from your calendar, your email, your meetings, and it talks about, hey, I noticed that you acknowledged Bob a little bit more this week based on emails, and you might want to think about acknowledging other people on your team. So just a lot of opportunities to get data in ways that we haven't before, to bring teams together and help teams be more effective. Okay, so the other piece I want to mention about teams and data is a company called 15Five. We all have been experiencing around the globe this whole, this really antiquated approach with feedback. All of us, I think, are we've been talking about it in Silicon Valley for many years now, that once a year feedback just doesn't do it for us. I don't think it ever did, but we're realizing it just doesn't work. But how do you give that ongoing feedback? Besides just being clear about what you're giving feedback on, defining those behaviors and those values, it's important to kind of create this ongoing experience. And so there's a tool called 15Five that every Friday an employee can fill out, and on a scale of 1 to 5, how was your week? That's it, it's just one question. Was it amazing or not so much? one of my friends who is, he leads a big product group, and he normally gets buys from all his employees, so he doesn't really think much of it. One Friday, he got a 1 from his employee, and was shocked. Like, he could not believe that it was a brand new employee. Well, he'd been there for a couple of months. His name was Chris, and my friend Steve thought he was killing it. He was just doing a really good job. And so Monday, when Chris walked into the office, Steve pulled him in to talk to him and said, "What's up? You know, I saw your feedback. Are you okay?" And Chris started just going on and on about how he just wasn't feeling leveraged. He wasn't feeling like he was using the skill sets he got hired for. There were all these projects that other people were doing that he thinks he should be part of. And so in a matter of 15 minutes, they were able to come together, and Steve kind of assigned him to 2 different projects that Chris was really excited about. And it was a huge turnaround for Chris. Now, I'm not saying that wouldn't have happened if, Steve did not have this, or Steve did not have this tool. All of these tools, like anything, just accelerate that whole process. So they have one-on-ones every Friday afternoon. So probably in that one-on-one, Steve would have figured it out. Maybe he would have figured it out even earlier. But the fact that it could happen on a Monday, in the beginning of the week, within 15 minutes, was what this tool is all about in providing.